You and Scott Aukerman did a podcast.
Yeah.
What was the name of that podcast? And because I just don't want to get it wrong, I want to hear you say it.
Well, when it started, it was you talking you two to me.
Yes.
And then we moved on to Are You Talking REM Re Me.
Right.
And then it was you talking heads to my talking head. And then the last one, Are You Springin' Springsteen on My Bean?
Welcome to the Rolling Stone studio live at South by Southwest. I have been tasked with introducing our next guest, which is frankly ridiculous because this person does not need an introduction. Step Brothers, Parks and Recreation, Party Down, Severance. The question is not who is this person, it's which project do you start gushing about first. The New Yorker called him the king of work, which I think was supposed to be the king of the workplace comedy or something. Like, they need to get their fact checkers in line. But the name of this man is Adam Scott.
Thank you.
Welcome.
Thanks.
Now, I will tell you what he is the king of, or at least the Archduke, is South by Southwest because he's got two films here, The Saviors and Hokum. I'm going to let you describe what these are because I don't want to step on any landmines in terms of plot twists, spoilers, and what have you. Let's start with The Saviors.
The Saviors. Well, I'll just tell you the ending for each of the movies, and then we can just go from there.
We'll work backwards.
The Saviors is a suburban thriller slash comedy, I guess, about a progressive couple who open up their guest house to a Middle Eastern pair of siblings to come and Airbnb their guest house. And as they are staying in this couple's guest house, this couple, against their own better instincts, starts to become suspicious of this pair of siblings, that they may be up to no good and may be planning some sort of terrorist act, and are ashamed of themselves for these suspicions, and then it kind of goes from there.
At its base, it's a suburban thriller about xenophobia.
Yes.
And interestingly, at least to me, it's kind of the story of this disintegrating marriage and
Yes.
what happens when these two people who find that their union's kind of collapsing are trying to sort of negotiate this. Was this something that you and your co-star Danielle Deadwyler and your director were sort of talking about as you were going into this?
I mean, Danielle Deadwyler, who's incredible and plays my wife in the movie. We play husband and wife, the couple you were talking about. And yes, our marriage is sort of falling apart. We never spoke about it. We just kind of met on Zoom, and I was a huge fan of hers anyway. We just started shooting, and both, I think, instinctively knew what we wanted to do, and then it happened to sort of fall into line with what the other one was doing, and it was really fun. And sometimes you're lucky and that happens where you don't have to discuss anything, you just start doing it and it feels right. Sometimes you need to sit down and discuss it and figure some stuff out, but I think the both of us sort of had an idea of what we wanted to do and wanted to be surprised by each other, and so we left a lot of it unsaid and just let the scenes speak for themselves. But I think both of us separately spoke to the director, Kevin Hamadani, about the material.
Okay, Hokum. I've watched this trailer 22 times. It's spooky as hell.
Yeah.
What's it about?
Well, Hokum is a new film by an Irish filmmaker, Damien McCarthy, who's incredible. It's a movie called Oddity from a few years ago that's really scary and really good. This is his new movie. It's about a writer, a novelist who I play, who comes to Ireland to spread his parents' ashes, and the place he goes to stay is where they spent their honeymoon, this old hotel out in the middle of the Irish countryside. And as he's there, he starts to discover that the hotel itself has a sordid history, and there may or may not be a witch living in the hotel. There may or may not be the hotel itself may or may not be haunted. So, and it's super scary. Is that an apt description? You haven't seen it. I feel like I'm doing it.
No, I think you're doing a great job.
Okay.
My question is this. On a scale of 1 to 10 shinings, 1 shining being mildly terrifying, right? And 10 shinings being like mass panic attacks in the theater.
Yeah.
How many shinings are we talking here?
I can't. I think that stuff is so subjective. How scary? Because I've talked to people who don't think The Shining is scary.
I'm sorry, what?
Yeah. Oh yeah. Like they admire the filmmaking, but they don't think it's scary. I've talked to people who don't think Hereditary is scary. I find Hereditary terrifying. I know. So I think that stuff is so. But I would give Damien as a filmmaker like 1,000 shinings. I think that he. That's right.
That's a lot of shinings.
Gave him 1,000 shinings. It's a lot of shinings. I feel like he has a really great sense of what is terrifying, and he always takes a side door into a particular scare. His movie Oddity is a great example of how he can scare you, and to me in a brand new way. And I think Hokum also does the same thing. He can set the camera on inanimate objects, and he holds just the right amount of time to scare the shit out of you.
Were there formative movies in your kind of film education that were horror-based?
Sure. I grew up in the 80s, so we would rent the Friday the 13th movies.
Right.
And those were the big horror films of the time, and they were scary. I think some of them age better than others, but the ones that I really loved and have really stood the test of time are, some the John Carpenter movies like Halloween and The Thing. Those are both just incredible movies, and they're great ones from that era. When one comes along and it's really good and really scary, there's nothing better than that, I think, than a really good horror movie. It's just sometimes they're, it's like a comedy. If you feel like they're pushing for a laugh, it stops being funny. If you feel like something is being forced on you or they're leaning in it a little too hard, I feel the same way about horror or suspense.
They inspire an involuntary reaction to it. They require you really being invested.
That's why I think both horror and comedy, seeing it in a theater with a crowd is essential. It's really fun to see a big, fun comedy that works. Same with a horror film. Yeah.
It's funny because I've talked to people that have described Severance as a comedy, and I've talked to people who have described Severance as a horror show, or as something that is more horror-centric than not.
Yeah.
Have there been times when you've been filming scenes where you feel like you're straddling that line?
Yeah, I think that I think that a lot of that, the credit for that sort of that tone where you're kind of straddling both really goes to Ben Stiller, who as we started making the show in 2020, we were really trying to find the tone, and he was really guiding us, and it was a matter of finding that kind of 1 foot in this surreal kind of bleak world and 1 foot in being a little self-aware and making fun of this sort of bleak world, and finding some jokes and some really strange and funny moments. And I think that if Severance were a deadly serious show all the way through, it would be hard. It would be a tough watch. I think the fact that it has moments where it's light on its feet are part of the reason it's as sticky as it is.
When you were on Amy Poehler's podcast recently, you talked about how all these people had come up to you and been like, "Oh, we watched Parks and Recreation during the pandemic, and it helped get us through this horrible time." And I feel like in a lot of ways, Parks and Rec was a great show to watch during the pandemic because it's how we wanted to feel. And Severance, which premiered during the pandemic, was kind of how we actually felt.
Yeah, that's a good way of putting it.
Yeah. There were a lot of people who I talked to. I said, "Oh, I'm going to talk to Adam Scott when I'm in Austin," and almost every person to a man was like the camcorder scene. You have to ask him about the camcorder scene at the end of season 2. It's not like you're playing against yourself in a scene specifically.
Yeah.
But I rewatched it today, and it's kind of phenomenal how there's a real rhythm to the back and forth between these two versions of your character, the two Marks. Can you tell us a little bit about playing that and kind of setting that up so it worked the way it did?
Yeah, thanks for saying that. It was hard. It was hard to do, and it was also something that I was dreading the whole season because I knew it was coming. I knew, Mark the Innie and Outie had to have this conversation. They had been on this collision course for a couple of seasons, and it had to happen. And Dan had told me he had this scene in mind. And so as an actor, it's the kind of thing that you dream of your whole life or your whole career, is to get a chance to do something like this. But then once it's in front of you, you're just like, oh shit, I actually have to do this, and it needs to be good. You can't, once something like that is in front of you, you just don't want to screw it up. And I certainly didn't. It was super challenging, super fun. The script was, the scene itself was being worked on right up until the moment we started shooting it. And since I was talking to a camera, I had shot versions of both sides of the conversation in my apartment, just on my phone. And so we used that on the camera for me to actually react to. I'm someone who loves doing as many takes as I can get. I like going and going. And so I just put all of my trust into Ben Stiller, who was directing the episode, and was just like, just because I trust his taste so completely, that I just needed him to be the barometer if something was working or not.
I imagine as an actor, it must be amazing having this show that is everyone's talking about and has opinions on. And also, I imagine it's a bit of a burden to be on a show that everyone's watching and they have strong opinions on, like,
Sure.
I don't know, say a season finale.
Sure.
And how it ends.
Yeah.
Do you find that you get a little bit of pushback personally? Like, people come up to you and they're like, hey, so
why did he do that?
Yeah.
I mean, for us making the show, the fact that people are responding at all it's all bonus, because we've all made a lot of things that and especially today when there's so much content and so much stuff out there and people have so much to choose from, to do anything that makes any sort of mark that people are talking, it's really hard. And we all just expected the show to come out and everyone to shrug their shoulders and move on. We loved it and thought it was fun, but figured it was just this weird show that people weren't gonna necessarily pay attention to in the way that they did. So the fact that anyone has any sort of visceral feelings or opinions about it, it's great.
I think they appreciate it when you guys do stuff like the pop-up you did in Grand Central too.
Oh yeah.
I kind of wonder how that plays from your side of things, where you're like, all right, well, I'm going to crunch some numbers and file some paperwork in Grand Central Station for 3 hours.
Yeah. It was really fun. That was Apple, the marketing team at Apple is incredible. And they had this idea to have people dressed up like Lumen employees in Grand Central Station or some public place, and they were telling us about it and thought it was a great idea. But then I also kind of raised my hand and said, what about the actors getting in there? What if we did it? And they were like, if you think you can talk your fellow castmates into doing it, great. And I didn't have to. Everyone wanted to. And so we actually went and did it, and it was so fun. It was like putting on a little improvised play out in public, but it was the best kind of improvisation because we were in a glass cube and no one could hear a word we were saying. So we may as well have been the most brilliant improvisers in the world.
Like A-list mimes.
Yeah. And we were like improvising as our characters, but also like, how much longer do you think we have to, are they going to come? Like, we were having fun, but also lost all track of sense of time. And like, I kind of have to pee. What do we do if we have to pee?
You and Scott Aukerman did a podcast.
Yeah.
What was the name of that podcast? And because I just don't want to get it wrong. I want to hear you say it.
Well, when it started, it was you talking you two to me.
Yes.
And then we moved on to Are You Talking REM me.
Right.
And then it was you talking heads to my talking head. And then the last one, Are You Springin' Springsteen on My Bean?
That one, yeah. So it's him and Scott Aukerman. It's two Scotts. And they take a band like U2 or REM or the Talking Heads, and they go album by album. Now, this is just music nerd catnip. It's really great.
Yeah.
But here's my question, because I
Yeah.
think you and I are gentlemen of a certain vintage.
Yes.
Probably very similar in age.
Yeah.
In terms of underrated 80s and 90s bands
Yeah.
who would benefit and deserve a kind of deep dive podcast,
Do they have to be underrated?
no.
Because I don't think U2 or,
Well,
I mean,
no, they're not. I mean, those are very rated. Like the Replacements, for example. That's not an underrated
that's
band.
what immediately came to mind
Right.
for me. I mean, REM, I kind of feel like in today's world, in today's culture, I do feel they're a bit underrated. Their importance isn't as readily acknowledged as I think it should be. And so in that way, doing the podcast was fun because maybe we're introducing their catalog to some people who listen to the podcast. I mean, I know we did here and there, and it was really nice that we did because I think they're the most important American band that we've had. I mean, there are a lot of great American bands, and Replacements is one of them. That would be a really good one. Tom Petty's another one I think would be really fun.
Man, yeah.
Billy Joel.
Well, let's not go that far, but yeah, no. The
Okay.
Tom Petty one was a great idea.
Yeah.
So when you have fans approach you, can you usually tell pretty quickly what they're going to mention?
Yeah, sometimes I can. Yes.
At this point in your career, the first thing is probably Severance.
Yeah, these days,
Right.
sure.
And the second thing, a very close second, is probably the greatest event in television history.
That's right.
Right.
That's like once a year I get one, and I'm like, do you want to sit down and talk for a while? Because I love talking about it.
So what this is, again, for people who do not know, it started out as a thing for Adult Swim, right? And
Yeah.
it's essentially this lead up to what is going to be this absolutely game-changing event in television history. And then it usually ends up being an incredibly uncanny, meticulous recreation of the opening credits of a TV show from the 80s.
Yeah, we had the idea to do this, to recreate opening credit sequences to the 80s TV shows, and brought it to Adult Swim. And they were like, that sounds great, but we need to fill a 15-minute slot. And these opening credit sequences were 1 minute long. So we had to fill this time. So we ended up making these little mock documentaries about the making of the recreation. That's why. And Jeff Probst is the host of it. Yeah. And it's ridiculous, but really fun. We did Simon and Simon with John Hamm and I, and Heart to Heart with Amy Poehler and I, and Too Close for Comfort with Catherine O'Hara and Catherine Hahn and a bunch of incredible people. And then Bosom Buddies with Paul Rudd and I.
That Bosom Buddies one, I can't recommend it highly enough.
Good. Thank you.
Pretty great. I think
So
you
glad.
know where this line of questioning is leading, though, right?
I don't.
When do we get the next one?
Oh, yeah. Well, I should have been able to guess that. They were really hard to make. They were labor intensive.
I can imagine, yeah.
And we did them for a price. They were not expensive, but we found the original locations where they would shoot, because back then opening credit sequences by and large were made up of small 1-second clips from the show itself. And so with an hour-long drama that they're shooting all over Los Angeles, we would have to go and find the episode that the 1-second clip is from and try and decipher where they were shooting. We would go find that spot and do it. Like in Simon and Simon, a car is driving over this bridge. It's a helicopter shot of a car driving over a bridge in San Diego. And we got the car, we got in a helicopter and went up and shot the car. And it's so dumb. Like, why are we doing this? We could have just used the shot from the original. No one would know.
Oh, we'd know.
Yeah. It's important that we did that.
You did it so some idiot podcaster would be
Sure.
like, oh my God.
There you go.
How did
There
you
you
get
go.
that shot from the bridge in San Diego?
Precisely. So thank you for caring.
Not wisely, but too well.
You're one of dozens.
Adam Scott, you have been at the Rolling Stone studio live at South by Southwest. You have 2 movies here. Congratulations on both of them.
Thanks.
Thank you so much for being here.
Thank you.
I look forward to being on your podcast very soon.
Absolutely. Thank you. Thanks so much, you guys.